Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're tackling a question that honestly keeps a lot of people up at night. If the government can just print money whenever they want, why are so many of us struggling to pay our bills? Why isn't everyone just rich? It's a fair question, right? I mean, we've all seen the headlines about trillions being spent on stimulus packages or bailouts. We know the Federal Reserve has the power to create money. So what's stopping them from just printing enough cash to make everyone comfortable? Well, stick around because we're going to break down exactly why printing money doesn't work the way most people think it does, and why understanding this might actually change how you think about your own finances. Let's start with the basics. When we talk about printing money, we're not really talking about running a bunch of paper through a printing press anymore. Most money creation today is digital. The Federal Reserve, which is America's central bank, can essentially create money with a few keystrokes. They do this by purchasing assets like government bonds or by lending to banks. This increases the money supply in the economy. Now here's where it gets interesting. Money itself isn't actually wealth. I know that sounds weird, but hear me out. Money is really just a tool we use to exchange goods and services. It's a medium of exchange. The actual wealth of a country comes from its resources, its labor force, its technology, and its ability to produce things people need and want. Think about it this way. Imagine you're on an island with 10 people, and everyone has $10. There's one pizza available for sale. That pizza might sell for, let's say, $5. Now imagine someone suddenly gives everyone on the island an extra $100. Does that create more pizza? No. You still have the same one pizza, but now everyone has way more money to bid on it. That pizza's price is going to skyrocket because there's more money chasing the same amount of goods. This is basically what we call inflation. When the money supply grows faster than the actual production of goods and services, each dollar becomes less valuable. Your purchasing power decreases. This is exactly what happened in countries like Zimbabwe and Venezuela when their governments tried to solve economic problems by printing massive amounts of currency. In Zimbabwe, they literally had $100 trillion bills that couldn't buy a loaf of bread. But here's something that confuses people. If printing too much money causes inflation, why didn't the United States experience catastrophic inflation after all the money creation during the 2008 financial crisis or the pandemic? The answer is actually pretty nuanced. First, a lot of that newly created money didn't immediately flood into the consumer economy. Banks held on to reserves, and much of the money went into financial markets or paying down existing debts. Second, the economy had a lot of slack. During a recession or pandemic, you have factories not running at full capacity, workers who are unemployed, and businesses that aren't producing as much. In that environment, adding money to the system can actually help get things moving again without causing immediate inflation. However, and this is important, we did eventually see inflation. In 2021 and 2022, inflation in the United States hit levels we hadn't seen in about 40 years. Prices for groceries, gas, housing, and pretty much everything else shot up. This was partly due to supply chain problems and the pandemic, but the massive increase in the money supply definitely played a role. So let's get back to the original question. Why are we broke if money can be printed? The answer is that printing money doesn't create real wealth. It doesn't build houses, grow food, or manufacture cars. It doesn't train workers or develop new technology. All it does is increase the number of dollars in circulation. If the government printed money and just handed everyone $1 million tomorrow, we'd all technically be millionaires on paper. But we wouldn't suddenly have more doctors, more houses, more food, or more smartphones. We'd just have more dollars competing for the same stuff, and prices would adjust accordingly. Within a short time, that $1 million would buy you what maybe a few $1,000s buys you today. There's also another crucial point here about how money actually enters the economy. The Federal Reserve doesn't just hand cash directly to regular people. They work through the banking system. They lend to banks. They buy government securities. They set interest rates. This means the newly created money tends to flow first to financial institutions, large corporations, and asset markets like stocks and real estate. This creates what some economists call the Cantillon Effect, named after an 18th century economist. Basically, the people who receive the new money first benefit the most because they can spend it before prices rise. By the time that money trickles down to average workers through wages and employment, prices have often already gone up. This is one reason why wealth inequality tends to increase during periods of aggressive money printing. Here's another angle to consider. Your personal financial situation isn't just about the total money supply. It's about your slice of the economic pie. If your wages aren't keeping up with the cost of living, if your skills aren't in demand, if you're buried in debt, or if you don't own assets that appreciate in value, then no amount of money printing by the Fed is going to make you wealthy. In fact, inflation caused by excessive money printing can actually make you poorer in real terms. If your salary increases by 3%, but inflation is running at 7%, you've effectively taken a 4% pay cut. Your dollars don't stretch as far as they used to. This brings us to an important lesson for all of us. Understanding how money and inflation work can actually help you make better financial decisions. When you know that holding cash during high inflation periods means you're losing purchasing power, you might look for ways to invest in assets that tend to hold or increase their value. When you understand that government stimulus might eventually lead to higher prices, you can plan accordingly. The reality is that modern economies are incredibly complex systems. Central banks walk a constant tightrope. Print too little money, and you risk deflation and economic stagnation. Print too much, and you get runaway inflation that destroys savings and destabilizes society. They're trying to find that sweet spot where there's enough money flowing to keep the economy healthy without devaluing the currency too much. So the next time someone asks why the government doesn't just print money to solve all our problems, you'll know the answer. Money printing doesn't create real wealth. It can't manufacture more goods or services. It can't train more workers or build more infrastructure. All it does is change the number of dollars in circulation. And if that number grows too fast compared to actual economic output, we all end up poorer through inflation. The path to actual prosperity, both for individuals and for nations, comes from increasing productivity, building skills, creating value, and managing resources wisely. There are no shortcuts, and printing money definitely isn't a magic solution. Thanks so much for watching. If this helped clarify things for you, go ahead and hit that like button, and subscribe if you want more content breaking down economics and finance in plain English. Drop a comment below, and let me know what financial topics you'd like me to cover next. I'll see you in the next one.